I went to a small private kindergarten, and this girl brought in, for show and tell, her violin, and she played, it was probably Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, something like that. And I think in my mind, I was just like, people my age can do this and play that. And that just, it started like a seed. I was 9, and I had begged to play violin at this point for a couple years. And my grandparents bought me a cheap violin from a little music store. I think it felt like, Indiana Jones, like the Holy Grail or something. You're just like, this crazy item. Knew you needed the bow. I didn't know what rosin was, so there was no rosin on the bow. So of course it didn't make any sound. So this little moment of, this is going to be so much harder than I thought. I was hearing violin maybe at church and, Christmas musicals and things like that. But I remember river dance was a thing in the early 90s. And so they had the Celtic music. And so I heard Irish fiddle. And so I was like, that's pretty cool. But my teacher did a great job of incorporating various genres of fiddle. And the Celtic thing really kind of grabbed me. And I was like, oh, that's that thing I heard that I love so much. One of the big elements of my story with this is that I was the one that wanted it bad and had to beg for it for a long time. And we didn't have anyone local that we could go to for lessons for at least like a year or two after I started asking. That's kind of the way it was for me. And I think that made me just enjoy like the art of it so much more. And I practiced, like I actually wanted to practice. I had 3 younger siblings. And so it was one of those things that we often had to kind of wait and defer and take our turns for getting to do a thing that we were interested in. The University of Memphis had a South Campus, that had a hub for Suzuki violin. That's really, I think, when the artistry took off in me, where I said, this is what I want to do. There was a lot, I will admit, there was a lot of tension in the family because that didn't make sense to my parents, who were like, well, how are you going to pay to support a family and like pay your bills with music? And there was this pressure to like pursue something like a regular job, if you will, and I was so passionate about music, though. I basically said, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'll double major. I'm going to do music. I can't let that go. Like, I know that's what I'm supposed to do, but I'll do computer science. I've never been more miserable in my life than when I was spending a year trying to learn to code and do computer science. So kind of on my own, I just dropped that. When I was in college, I started teaching as a way to kind of add supplemental income. And when I graduated, by that time I had about 30 private students that I was working with. So that's how I paid my bills. And like, that's what I did pretty much full time. So my professor in my undergrad, his name was Timothy Shue. I felt that like I could play decently well, but it was a lot of work. He was one of these people that came in and kind of taught me to unlearn what I'd learned so that I could kind of rebuild from a much more holistic sense. A lot of what we studied, I felt like I was studying with a Jedi Master almost. I was very holistic about like being in tune with the music, with your body, and doing things in the most natural way possible. I got to a point where it just felt effortless to play, putting into effect everything that he gave me. And it was weird, like some of the stuff I had to let go of everything I thought I needed to do with music and just trust what he's telling me. But it gave me the tools to be able to go on and I think be an artist. And it's like where you just kind of feel the music and it just kind of exudes from you. That I can trace back to him and what he gave me. It was, I think, grappling with this spiritual side of it. I thought that maybe I was supposed to go into ministry. But then through that process realized that the music was the ministry. There was a time during the pandemic where I had to hang it up for a bit. I was in a not so healthy group of people that tried to convince me that a passion like this for music was unhealthy. It's just, when you are so connected with something and you know you're supposed to do it, and you're removed from that. It's like there's an ache, like a longing in your heart that you can't quite fulfill. And I just knew in my soul that I needed to get back to it. Connecting with the film stuff, like when I was younger, I made movies with my friends, and I considered going to film school. But I chose music in the end, but I've always loved cinema. I've loved filmmaking. I really get into it. And I always in the back of my mind knew I wanted to work on film scores. And then one day I got a call. He's like, hey man, so I'm going to be scoring a film. It's got a theatrical release date and then the TV series that follows it up. And I need you to come in and do like the upper strings for me. So violin and viola, basically. And I mean, there was no hesitation there. Going to a movie premiere in a movie theater and then hearing my playing over the speakers and seeing my name in the credits was just so surreal, because it's this sort of picture of like coming full circle with my passion. And I never thought I'd be doing that. I thought I'd given that up by choosing music, but I'm like, well, hey, look, here we are. So this violin is a 2021 violin by Jacob Brillhart. He is a maker up in Vermont. So this is handmade. This is a one-of-a-kind instrument. And this was one that I found at the violin shop where I work. Brandon Godman is a friend of Jake's and had a couple of his. And I've always played the instrument that I got when I was in high school, and it's a good instrument, decent instrument. But I don't think I ever gave myself the room to look for like my voice, if you will. And I kid you not, this was a Harry Potter and the Wand moment. When I played this, I was like, this, I think, is the one. It went to a couple festivals while I was thinking about it. And I was like, if it comes back, I'm going to maybe pull the trigger. And sure enough, no one bought it. It's just a gorgeous new build, because I always thought I'd for sure buy something that's at least 100 years old. But no, I mean, Jake is one of the best makers right now, and he just delivered such a nice instrument that I connect with. I think I would want my legacy to be that I gave other people the freedom to pursue their passion and to express themselves in their own journey. There's a platform that we all have as performers, as artists, that whether you like it or not, it's there. And you don't have to have millions of followers to have that. If there's 15 people listening to what you have to say and following, you're affecting them. And so it's worth it to know that someone maybe was freed up to pursue a passion, or like maybe freed from like something negative because of what my art did for them, what my music did.